Psalm 8, 3 through 5. When I look up at thy heavens, the work of thy fingers, the moon and the stars set in their place by thee. What is man that thou should remember him? Mortal man that thou should care for him? Yet thou hast made him little less than God, crowning him with glory and honor.
Proverbs 4:1. Listen, children, to a father's instruction, and be attentive that you might gain insight.
Matthew 5:4. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted.
Welcome to the celebration of his life. I know that many of you traveled far and wide, so we're so grateful that you're able to make it here this afternoon to celebrate Ron's wonderful, beautiful life. Let us pray together, please. Gracious God, we give you thanks and praise for the beautiful, amazing life of Ron Murphy. We thank you and praise you for all the steps from all the days from the very moment he was born, where you have always been with him and guided him throughout his journey of life on this planet Earth. We thank you and praise you for the gift of love that was implanted in his heart from the very beginning, your spirit of love, which he received and shared with so many people in his lives, his family, his parents, his siblings, so on, all those in his life, and all throughout, all the way till the death day he died. So we just give you thanks and praise. We mourn, we miss him, we grieve the loss of him being here with us physically, but we also celebrate his wonderful life with joy as he enjoys a new and eternal life that will be forever one of peace and joy. May our time of sorrow and grief be also a time where we can share wonderful memories and stories and humor and all that made the life of Ron so beautiful. We give you thanks and praise for that life that we celebrate today through Christ our Lord.
Old Testament reading can be found in selections from Ecclesiastes. Generations come and generations go, while the earth endures forever. The sun rises and the sun goes down. Back it returns to its place and rises there again. The wind blows south, the wind blows north. Round and round it goes and returns full circle. For everything its season, and for every activity under heaven its time. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time for mourning and a time for dancing. He has made everything to suit its time. Moreover, he has given man a sense of time, past and future, but no comprehension of God's work from beginning to end. I know there's nothing good for man except to be happy and live the best life he can live while he is alive. It is not in man's power to restrain the wind, and no one has power over the day of death. If you would please join me in the unison reading of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Too soon to leave this earth. How could all your work be done? Ash to ash and dust to dust. Seems to me you'd just begun. When grief invades my soul, there's comfort in a prayer I find. Though these candles honor you, they burn for those you've left behind. I'll sing for you because I need to. Right now, this is all I know. I'll sing so we will not forget you. I will sing you home. I will sing you home. Know that you will live on the lips of those who knew what it was you had to give and what it was we learned from you. This is my prayer for you, that maybe someday we will know if it helped your journey home, or if it helped us let you go. I'll sing for you because I need to. Right now, this is all I know. I'll sing so we will not forget you. I will sing you home. I will sing you home. sing you home. I'll sing for you because I need to. Right now, this is all I know. I'll sing so we will not forget you. I will sing you home. I will sing you home. I will sing you home. I will sing you home.
The historian Henry Adams said, "A teacher affects eternity. He can never tell where his influence stops."
From Oscar Wilde, anybody can make history, anybody can write history, but it takes a genius to explain it.
And from Eddie Vedder, it's a character builder to be a fan of the Chicago Cubs.
Education is the most important subject which we as a people can be engaged in. Abraham Lincoln.
Rooting for the Cubs is not easy, but the best things in life never are. Actor Dennis Farina.
And from John Hancock, success is not measured by how much money we make or the titles we hold, but by the positive impact we have on the lives of others.
On behalf of my sisters and my brother Eric, we thank you for attending this celebration of the life of our dad, Ronald Frank Murphy. It's hard to know where to begin, so I thought I would begin at the very beginning with a letter that my grandmother wrote to her sister Molly on May 31st, 1937. Dear Molly, I have a surprise for you. The blessed event has arrived. The baby, a boy weighing about 8 pounds, arrived yesterday, Sunday, May 30th at 9:45 a.m. Everything went all right. I started having pains about 5:45 a.m., and at 9:45 a.m., the baby was born. It was a surprise for everyone, including the doctor, because he had not expected him until June 17th. I came through it splendidly, with hardly any trouble. Now I'm taking it easy in bed for the next 10 days. You can now take your vacation whenever you want to, whenever it's convenient. We're all hoping to see you soon, and I know you will be anxious to see your little nephew. We are going to name him Ronald Frank. I am writing this in bed, so I can't write very well. Everyone else is all right. Mother, Dad, Beatrice are all proud of the little baby. Mother says it seems strange to have a baby in the house again, since we haven't had any for quite a while. Please write soon. Love from all, Isabel. So he was born on the 30th of May, 1937, and up until March 9th, 2025, there were 87 years, 9 months, 9 days, and a little more than an hour. He was Isabel and Wayne's little boy, Carolyn and Janice's big brother, husband to Judy, brother-in-law to Marty, Dad to Kathy, Gretchen, Rick, and Becky. He's a papa, a great papa, an uncle, a friend, a coach, and teacher to thousands. And in our family, Eric kind of followed behind Dad's footsteps with the studying of history. Kathy and Becky both became teachers, but Dad had another talent that I embraced because I became an actress. In 1976, a local community group got together to put on a performance of the musical 1776 in honor of the country's bicentennial. Mom was cast as Abigail Adams, and Dad was cast as John Hancock. And although Dad had done a role in his senior play in high school, this was the first time that we got to see him out acting. It was only the beginning, though. He would continue on this community theater acting career for 20 years. So from one of the country's founding fathers in 1776, to the island commander in South Pacific, to a G-man in You Can't Take It With You, to the ambassador in Don't Drink the Water, and to a rabid Cubs fan in the play Bleacher Bums, Dad would do one or two plays every summer for 20 years. He had an unusual method for memorizing his lines. He would record his cue lines on a cassette tape recorder, and then he would respond with his line as he played the cues. At first, he'd read from the script, but eventually he got to the point where he was conversing with the tape recorder from memory, and he was very good. One year, we were both in a play called My Three Angels, and Dad's character was not thrilled with my character dating his son. So one afternoon, I walked into Mom and Dad's house, and Dad called out to me with a line from the play that said, "Now listen to me, young woman." I stopped immediately, and my eyes filled with tears. He sounded so angry. When I stepped into the room, Dad took one look at me and realized his acting had been a little too spot on in the delivery, but a hug and a chuckle fixed it all. As William Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts: son, brother, husband, dad, papa, great papa, uncle, brother-in-law, friend, coach, teacher.
Well, I'm going to talk about my big brother. Ron was 12 years older than I am, so when I went into first grade, he went to college. So we had 6 years or so living under the same roof, and he meant a lot to both me and my sister. He was a teacher, and I think that Janice and I were his first students. He taught us how to shuffle cards, including doing the arch, which I'm not very good at anymore, but I still know how to shuffle cards, and it's all because of my big brother. He taught us how to throw a ball, not like a girl. And I can remember Janice and I saying, "But Ronnie, we are girls." I don't know that I really ever learned that very well, how to do it, how to throw it not like a girl. But I know it was important to the guys. He also taught us economics. When he went off to college, there were some jobs around the house that we had to pick up on, and one of them was washing the kitchen floor. We lived in an old farmhouse, and when you came into the house, you either came through the front door or the back door, and they both came into the kitchen. And I'm sure Janice and I were part of the problem, that the the floor would get dirty really fast. And so one of the jobs was to kind of wash the floor. I'm not sure how well we did it, but anything helped. And so, that was one of our jobs. And when he came back from college for a weekend or something, he was talking and he said, well, he got paid $25 to do it. And Janice and I are going, you get paid? So that was our first economic lesson. You get paid for work. After Ron and Judy moved into Good Samaritan in the fall of 2017, and then Judy passed, Stephen and I moved into Good Samaritan January of 2018. So it was soon after, and Ron wanted to have, some family things. And so every Sunday we'd have dinner together in the dining room for senior living, and it was our thing. That was when we would talk about sports, reminisce, and just have some family time together, which was always good. And he liked to play cards, so every Friday we played 5 Crowns with some people that lived there too, and that was, one of our things. And then at Murphy Happy Hour Friday night, he would tell whether he won or not. Sometimes he did, sometimes he didn't. When the kids would come, it was always so good because I enjoyed it because it really was family time, because we got to see our family that we didn't see very often because they come to see their dad, and then we get to spend time with them too. So that was very special for the years we were together there. And Janice could come visit both her siblings at the same time. And so that was good. So there was a lot of family reconnecting and everything because we were living in the same building. And what's funny, and I didn't think about it till I was planning this, I lived under the same roof longer the last 7 years than the first 6 years of my life. So it really was nice to have that reconnection. The final thing that I know I'm going to miss a lot is he was the historian of the family. He had 12 years of memories that Janice and I don't have, and he loved to reminisce, and we would, ask him about, even mundane things about the farm that we didn't remember, like where was the outhouse? Because when I remember, we had a bathroom. Anyway, so it's going to be so hard to not have that anymore because there's no one else that has it. We've lost that part of our family history. And I always enjoyed hearing him talk about his kids and things that went on when, he was a young married or a young teacher and stuff like that. So it's sure gonna miss him, but he was a great big brother.
Well, hello, Rick. Hello, Beth. Well, hello, Rick. Where's Beth? Those were the greetings I was getting over the last few years when I'd be able to come down, or we'd be able to come down. But who was my dad? To me, he was a lot different. I'm certainly willing to bet than he was to Gretchen, to Kathy, to Becky. For starters, and they may remember, Becky won't remember this, but Kathy and Gret may remember Dad teaching baseball. We lived on the Broadway house, and we played a game called long base. And all it was is he would pitch, we would hit, and then run to the base. Then the next person would hit, and we'd switch bases. And it was kind of a weird game, but it was an introduction to the game of baseball. That game got to be quite special. Dad has been said, he's a teacher, he's a coach, and to me, he was both. From, we called it midget league, 3rd, 4th grade baseball. He coached. I remember a game, and it took a few years later to realize what it kind of meant to him. But there was a game where some kid hit a fly ball, actually a line drive. I was playing second base. And I jumped, made the catch, ran over and tagged second base because the kid that was on second had started to run at the hit. 3rd grader. And I remember jumping. That was like our first win. Years later, he goes, what was astonishing about that play was that I had the intelligence, the thought to run over and touch second base. Because at 3rd grade, I think the thought might have been just the fact that he even caught the ball, let alone run over and touch second base for the double play in the game. That grew. He also coached my teams in 5th grade and 6th grade. 5th grade, we won the league championship. 6th grade, I won the league batting title. Then, as time went on, I, go into junior high. He's busy with other stuff. He didn't want to coach at the higher levels, which was fine. But eventually we got to play softball together. Once I was in high school, old enough, I was allowed to play in our church league softball, so then we got to play softball together. He pitched. I played typically shortstop or second base or center field. Then there was the one time I had a team. I got a bunch of kids together, a bunch of friends, and Dad played on that team in a tournament. And a friend of mine on there thought it was so cool that Dad was playing, because after having him as a teacher and going through all that and calling him Mr. Murphy the whole time, this time you got to call him Ron. Hey, Ron, good job. The baseball had another little connection, which was kind of interesting. We would go to baseball games in Burlington, Iowa. Burlington had a minor league team in the Midwest League, Class A ball, and so we'd go over there a few times during the summer. So this would have been probably it would have been 80, summer of 83. We went over. And at Community Field, you walk into the ticket booth, counter, gate, whatever, and then you go to the right, and that's where the concessions were. But they segregated the concessions. You can get your food on this side of the aisle, and if you wanted soda, you could get that. But they had the beer on the left side. So we get our hot dogs and whatever. And this time I didn't get a soda. I don't think he thought anything of it. But then we came out, and it's like, you want a beer? I'll buy. And he had to think about that for a minute. I was 19. I can't drink beer legally in Illinois. but I could in Iowa. And we were in Iowa. So he stood there, thought about it, and said, yeah, sure. So that's the first beer I legally bought my dad. It was Coors, which at the time you couldn't get east of the Mississippi, which also made it a bit special. Not like the Yingling that now you could almost get about everywhere, but this one was the Coors. There was sometimes when I was allowed to have the car on like a Saturday night if I wasn't working at the pizza place. So friends and I would maybe go to the dances over in Burlington. And he always knew where I was the next day, because typically there'd be a 6-pack of Coors beer in the fridge for him. So he knew where that was coming from. With Dad, you had to work. He was going to make sure that you understood working. There were allowances given, but when you got to an age, you worked. At 14, I think at least 3 of us, Kathy, Gretchen, and myself, understood that at 14, that's the youngest age that they're going to take you into the cornfields for DeKalb. All 4 of us. All summer job. Dad's summer job was as a field inspector for DeKalb. And when I turned 14, I was one of the first crews called, because they hired, for the summer help, they hired first the kids of the people who worked there. So we did that for a number of years. Then it became Garst. I remember I was in summer school at Western, but a buddy of mine and I were both doing, helping with in the fields, riding a cutter. Cutter would be a machine, like a tractor type thing that goes and cuts off the heads of the tassels. I had the night shift. Patrick's not here, but he could, my cousin Patrick, Aunt Marty's son, and Amy's brother, can attest to a trait that we inherited from our grandfather, Parr. And that is I'm colorblind. Not completely, I can tell things, so don't start asking what's that blue and what's that, which I get a lot. So anyway, one time I'm working, Jim left the tractor in the field that I was supposed to go to, so I went there. After school, I was at Western at the time. And so I went and did, here's what you're supposed to do. Finish this field, start the next one. Okay, I finished the field, had a couple rounds or whatever. Drove over, across the road to the next field. Had enough time for about one full round. Go down, come back. Got off count on my rows. So I took out one of the males. You weren't supposed to do that. So I was off. So I show up the next day, and the area boss is there. Dad is there. And I start getting the, what are you doing? Are you stupid? What's the kind of, I don't think that was what was used, but he was not a happy camper, the boss. And he shows me this one leaf, green corn leaf. We paint red on there so you can see the red on the green leaf. What are you, colorblind? Yes, I am. He looked at Dad. Dad he is. So the boss is kind of sitting there, ready to go ballistic, and it's like, just be careful. So those little things, those experiences that not everybody's going to get. There was one other thing about working in the cornfields, especially in the early days. We'd get up, be on the road to the plant by about 6:45. And, you're thinking in the 70s, and anybody who was in their teens and 20s in the 70s, you used to listen to WLS radio, may remember a show called Animal Stories. I know John would remember that. So one morning I flipped his radio over to WLS and listened to Animal. He goes, "What are you doing? You're messing with my radio." So it's like, you got to listen to this. It's funny. It's really funny. So we listened to Animal Stories. And I did that for a couple days. And it was not really too much later, I didn't have to change the channel. He would change the channel to Animal Stories. And knowing Dad and his love of rock and roll music, which WLS played at the time, you'd know him turning to WLS is a shocker. So, yeah, it was one of those things. He just flipped the channel. He started flipping the channel. One of the best things about growing up, in your family is all the little vacations you get to go on. If you're lucky enough to go do trips with parents. Through time, you don't have that. You lose that. You start your own family. You create your own memories with your own family, going places and whatever. I've been very fortunate that we started taking vacations with Mom and Dad. Beth and I would take vacations with Mom and Dad to New Orleans. Start doing some family things here. We'd go to Sevierville, Myrtle Beach, places. But we got to be able to at least stay together later. Unfortunately, after Mom passed, those things stopped. Dad was really unable and not wanting to go. But we were able to enjoy time in Puerto Rico with them. We were able to enjoy time in the Virgin Islands, here, at the Glade, in Sevierville, Myrtle, as I said. And there were times which really made me happy, was they would like to go down to Florida. And when Brad and Angela were living down there, they went and saw them. They got together. And that meant a lot to me. So, maybe the same, maybe different, but those are things about my dad that I experienced that will stay with me forever. Thanks.
Dad spent 32 years leading and teaching students in a classroom. My husband Doug and I did a little bit of math and came up with a number that we think Dad had taught in excess of 11,000 students over those 32 years. I had him personally for 3 courses. Becky had him for a couple of courses. And Dad would fill these courses with creativity, games, simulations, to pique the interest and ingenuity of the students. And there was Railroad Barons game, there was learning how to do your taxes, there was how to purchase a car. One of the things that happened in my civics class is we had to rewrite the Bill of Rights in contemporary language and then go door to door in town to get people to sign it like it was a petition. It wasn't very popular. Another simulation that Dad would give to the history classes, Had to do with some international security, global territory type things. And a couple of my friends sent me notes, memories about their experience with this game with Dad. And one of them, my friend John, said, "I remember your dad's bafflement, but willingness to tolerate my efforts to convert the civics game of world domination and competition into an exercise of democratic socialist cooperation. He didn't say no, even though it put a very quick end to the game since everybody won." And another friend said, "He was a great teacher and very highly tolerant of us crazy MHS students, Monmouth High School. He had so many special ways of teaching, but I too remember that world civics game. I was the leader of a full-on, impoverished northern communist country. He asked me how my people could be aggressive when my people were freezing in the cold. 'Comrade Murphy,' I replied, 'their communism keeps them warm.' He laughed at me and gave me a couple of points just for strategic planning." And yet a third friend remembered this same exact game and said, "Mr. Murphy did indeed reward ingenuity. At the onset of the World International Security Simulation, I asked him what the rules were. And he replied, 'It's the world. There are no rules,' which struck me as very realistic. So on a Friday afternoon, I conveyed to Mrs. Lipp, the librarian, that I wanted the control files for the game. It was everybody's secret information on there for each country. I photocopied them. I snuck them out, photocopied them at the college library, and the following Monday I presented them to the other country heads. I was India and had no money and no troops, so I had to figure out another path. I told the other country heads that, in my opinion, there was no possibility of anyone achieving a military victory. I don't know if that was really true, but everyone just need to sign this peace treaty, and it worked. Mr. Murphy gave me extra points just for creativity. To his considerable credit, I don't think anyone else would have awarded such shenanigans." 2 years ago, Dad decided to set up a scholarship fund to provide scholarships to 2 graduating seniors at the high school where he taught and where all of us graduated from. Last year, we gave out the first 2 Ron and Judy Murphy Memorial Scholarships, and Wednesday of this week, we'll be giving out the next 2 for this year. To encourage applications, I had gone online and put information about the scholarships on various high school-related websites and in our hometown in Illinois. What followed were hundreds of comments and memories of Dad as a teacher. One of my favorite teachers. He wore his love of history on his sleeve and showed it. A legend in the Monmouth Public Schools. A fabulous teacher. I loved his class. Teachers like Mr. Murphy definitely need to make a comeback. Ron, and from a teacher up here, Ron was one of the social studies teachers that I thought of as a mentor and a friend. Thoughtful, funny, and friendly, Ron was a good spirit who cared about his students and his fellow educators. I so admired Ron. A great teacher who really made you think. A pillar in Monmouth High School educators. I was not a model student, but he was someone I gelled with, and he kept me focused. I learned a lot from him. He was passionate about history, and he shared that passion with us. Mr. Murphy and Principal Farwell talked to me one day and convinced me to come back to school to finish my junior and senior years and get my high school diploma. I never had the pleasure of having your dad as a teacher. However, I talked to him many times in the hallways. He was a wonderful man. I enjoyed our conversations greatly. As the American writer Leo Roston noted, I think the purpose of life is to be useful, to be responsible, to be honorable, to be compassionate. It is, after all, to matter, to count, to stand for something, to have made some difference that you lived at all. That was Mr. Murphy. That was Ron. That was Dad. Well done, good and faithful servant.
The New Testament reading comes from John 14, 1 through 7. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many dwellings. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also. And you know the way, the place where I am going. Thomas said to him, Lord, we do not know where you are going. How can we know the way? Jesus said to him, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you know me, you will know my Father also. From now on, you do know him, and you have seen him.
I think that's the first time I've ever heard a countdown to the reading of the gospel ever. That was special. That worked. That was perfect timing, I suppose. Well, thank you all for sharing about Ron's life and so many different quotes that were meaningful to Ron and to all of you. Ron and Judy, his wife, were faithful members of this church, Fairfield Glade Community Church, for many years. And so we are so grateful that you've come here and we're all celebrating his life. And we, of course, celebrated Judy's life back in 2017, which is actually right with the year that I started serving as the pastor. Just a few months after I started serving here as the pastor 8 years ago is when Judy passed. And I remember when I first arrived here that Judy was actually the caregiver for Ron. If you remember, he was already in a wheelchair at that point, having some health issues, and they actually lived not too far from where I live, just a street over, and they would come as much as they could. It was not always easy for Judy to get Ron here with his health issues in the wheelchair, but she would come as much as she could, and they'd even come, and he always wanted to come to our faith development, our religious education programs, because of course he was always a student, always wanting to learn, a historian as he was, a teacher. And as many of you know, they were very active with music ministry here, Judy and Ron both. And so over the years, we saw that they were very, very appreciative of and saw the importance of music here. And after Judy passed, his wife, Ron's wife, Ron decided to establish another memorial fund besides the one that was mentioned for the school, the high school where he taught. There was set up here, has been set up a Judy Murphy Memorial Fund that's primarily for our music ministry, and that honors Judy. And so, in fact, we just had a concert. Actually, I think it was the day that he passed. Believe it or not, we had a concert here at the church, which was partially funded through the Judy Murphy Memorial Fund. So that was Kathy. I think you called me and told me your dad passed, and we're like, oh, wow, we're going to have the concert this afternoon. So we honored him as well as your mom, as well as Judy. So, but I remember he was so faithful, of course, with Judy when she became sick. She, obviously, as we all know, it happened very quickly, that disease, and so he was there lovingly with her. Kind of everything switched from him being the one that was constantly looking out for her and moving to Good Samaritans, which, of course, he lived for the rest of his time here in Fairfield Glade until just a few months ago. And I remember he couldn't come to the church very often, again, because of his health issues. So, but I would I go out to Good Samaritans, and I would always enjoy visiting with Ron. And when I was doing a worship service there once a month, he would always come and roll himself into the chapel on his own, and we'd have communion together. And then whenever we couldn't do that anymore in the chapel, then I would go visit his place there in his apartment in assisted living, and always enjoyed conversing with him. And of course, he always asked, well, what's going on at the church? What's going on here and there? Always very inquisitive all the time. And I remember he always had his Chicago Cubs calendar on the wall. So, of course, I had to ask him how the Cubs were doing, and that kind of varied from time to time. And of course, he always had the television on at a fairly loud, fairly high volume. You could hear it from before you even got into the apartment. And a lot of times he had those Western movies, of course, those old black and white Westerns. In fact, I remember the last few times I saw him, I think it was Zorro. Remember that old thing with the Zorro thing? I'd never seen that for years and years. I hadn't seen that and looked over. And, oh my gosh, I didn't even know they still produced that or showed that on television. So yeah, he was wonderful to have conversations with, and I know he's very faithful and always loved his family, loved his church, loved Judy, loved everybody that was involved in his life. So this is a wonderful celebration to remember him and keep him in our hearts today and the days hereafter. So let us continue to celebrate not only today, but continue on.
To give us a history assignment for his memorial service. Dad requested that we sing as a congregational hymn, The Amazing Grace. But he wanted the original lyrics and the original tune, so it took a little digging. John Newton, who's the author of Amazing Grace, had a hard life. When he was very young, his mother passed away when he was 7, and he turned his back at that point on the Bible scriptures and hymns that she tried to teach him. And he alternated between boarding schools and in family members being tossed from place to place. Eventually, he ended up being tossed around in the British Navy, but it really wasn't his thing, so he deserted and was eventually captured and flogged. But he used his ship skills well and became a transporter of slaves and a slave trader. But on the night of March 9th, 1748, his ship fell victim to a sudden brutal storm. Terrified, John turned to God, praying fervently. Surviving the storm, John felt he had been delivered, and this conversion led to spiritual growth that saw John Newton become one of the most powerful evangelical preachers in British history, a powerful opponent to slavery, and the writer of hundreds of hymns, including Amazing Grace. Because Dad requested the original lyrics and tune, we have printed those for you on the insert. The tune itself actually precedes the lyrics, and we suspect is one of the first tunes that the lyrics were put to. So it's not the same tune that we're familiar with. So John's going to play through it once so that we can hear what the tune is. So if you'll stand and join us in singing Amazing Grace.
just two announcements before the final benediction. One is that this celebration of life is being recorded on our church's YouTube channel, which is open to the public. You just look up Fairfield Glade Community Church on YouTube and you'll find us there. And you can find the recording of this church, this celebration service. It should be up there within an hour or two. So any of those 11,000 students that weren't able to make it here today, you can tell them, share with your family, your friends, any of his students and mentors and colleagues and so on, that they can see this celebration of life on our YouTube channel. And the other announcement is, of course, we have a reception for everyone here right behind you in the fellowship hall, so hope you stay for that. Let us go forward now. Let us offer up a prayer. Gracious God, we thank you and praise you for the wonderful life of Ronald Murphy. We have celebrated today his life this afternoon, but it is a celebration that will continue on in our hearts, among ourselves, with our family, our friends, our community. May we go forward knowing that he is now enjoying an eternal life of joy and peace, and that he remains in our heart through the Spirit that connects us all through love, that unconditional love that we have experienced through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.